Story of his peers in Fulton County. Michelle Zepeda has been following this case. This thing, of course, as we all know, began way back in July of 2016 when Sierra was reported missing. Michelle joins us now live from the courthouse there, Wauseon in Fulton County. Just a breathtaking and emotional afternoon, my friend Michelle.
I was sitting inside the courtroom. Emotion doesn't even begin to describe what happened in there. This family has sat through these hearings for a month and a half. They've lived this nightmare for close to 2 years. And today, they thought today was maybe about them, to hear that Sierra's killer would be sentenced to death, but rather, from what I heard, they felt that Worley put the spotlight on himself. He took 45 minutes, like you said, and spoke directly to the family. I mean, eye-to-eye contact. Her grandfather was the first one to up and leave. It was a statement about what a beautiful girl that she was that began the exodus from the courtroom. I would say there were around 100 people in the courtroom, mostly wearing purple. The family left first, and then one by one, other people, community members, jurors were also in there, left until there was a pretty scattered crowd that was left. After that, of course, he was sentenced. He was sentenced to death. That was emotional for them. Not as much emotion on their faces as some might have expected. There were a few tears that were seen that were wiped away. But then finally, you heard the emotional statements, the letters read, her mom taking the stand and talking about her daughter. It was complete silence in the courtroom.
Michelle, also while I have you here, several things to talk with you about. One of those, I thought, we have not heard that much from James Worley himself throughout the trial. We were there for the one hearing in which they asked the judge for some relief so he could get more sleep. He was having trouble sleeping over at the Correction Center of Northwest Ohio. And then we had to sit here and listen to him for 45 minutes today. And I thought back, Michelle, to this morning, his own defense attorney pointing to mental health assessment that he is narcissistic, that he thinks he's smarter than everybody else, that he thinks he is running the show. And attorney Mark Burling said, yes, that is a figment of his imagination. He said he has a sense of entitlement. And for 45 minutes this afternoon, I thought, oh my God, that is what I'm watching right now.
Yeah, he definitely ran the show. He knew that he had the chance to speak, yet he stopped, made everybody take a recess so he could talk to his attorneys one last time. He clearly wanted his story out there. He had an explanation for every piece of evidence, for his upbringing, for all of the evidence against him in this case. Basically, at one point saying that whoever the killer was took Sierra to his barn to plant evidence. So he seemed to have an excuse for everything. And as Sierra's mom said, he was unremorseful.
Oh, unremorseful, totally. In fact, he basically looked at the investigators, not only but the prosecutors, but the investigators in uniform over there, and referring to DNA found under her fingernails, he said, find that man. He basically introduced the whole concept. I know it had been testimony in trial about the man in the red shorts, and James Worley today even repeatedly referring to let's just go with some human feces found in a field near there, which was never tested, and my attorneys say would have been DNA rich. He was just totally wronged in this trial, according to him. It was amazing. Now, I want to take you, Michelle, to the judge's finding this afternoon. He didn't just come out and say, I sentence you to death. No, quite on the contrary, he went specifically through the timeline. He went through all of the aggravating circumstances, but then Michelle gave significant weight to the mitigating circumstances, including mental illness.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely something the judge has to go through. He needs to make a case for everything. From day one, the judge has been very careful to make sure that everything is done by the book, to make sure that nothing would go wrong with this. You know, of course, we're hearing that this is going to be appealed, of course, and he needs to make sure that everything is done by the book. And yes, the mental illnesses and the personality disorders, that did play a big part. He did say that the psychologist, Dr. Fabian, who did that exam with James Worley, a well-respected doctor, he felt that he knew what he was doing, and he did give weight to that, but it wasn't enough with all the aggravating circumstances, basically saying that Worley not only kidnapped Sierra, but then hid her body and murdered her in order to, escape any sort of punishment.
Yes, in fact, he said, talking about James Worley, that he did take into consideration, in a positive way, the care he provided his mother, the concern he showed for his brother. That is James Worley we're talking about. And at one point, he did say that the mental health issues do constitute mitigating factors. It seemed to open the door just a crack to the possibility of life in prison without parole. But then eventually the judge would say there is no doubt that the aggravating circumstances not only outweigh, he said, far outweigh all mitigating factors. And then he handed down the sentence of death for James Worley. So all began back in July of 2016. By the way, can I also add here, while I have Michelle there, and we've talked with family members, Tara Ice is an aunt of Sierra Joggin, and she talked about the bright light, which was Sierra's life. We've talked about that all. The pictures, she just seems to be beaming in every picture we see of Sierra Joggin. She said, we light a candle, but the light of that candle has nothing on Sierra. Her light shines brighter today than ever before. A very positive, painful, powerful statement altogether. And yet she also said we had to celebrate her 21st birthday with her not on this earth. And holidays are quiet and more somber.
It was definitely heart-wrenching. Every single letter that was read, every single family member that went up and spoke to the judge described her as full of life. And they feel that maybe this happened so that nobody else had to suffer any sort of evil from this monster. The word monster, the word evil was used several times to describe James Worley. And I think everybody, all those relatives, wanted to make sure that they remembered Sierra for who she was, for her bubbly personality, and for being full of life, always positive, always smiling, and all of the good things that she did for her family and friends.
The last person to speak was her mom, Sheila. And boy, Michelle, you're a mom of daughters. I'm a dad of daughters. I have contemplated, I don't know, I can't imagine what this family has gone through or how they have gone through it. She broke down at one time, but when she gained her composure, she came roaring back with so much strength. And then, talking of Worley, said the death penalty is what he deserves. He not only killed her, he dehumanized her and then tried to bury her so deep she would not be found, as though she were disposable. My heart was breaking, but she wrapped up and said, I couldn't be more proud of my daughter. Enough said, I guess, there on this day. Go ahead, Michelle.
Sheila has showed so much strength through all of this. I sometimes look at her and wonder how she can come to these hearings and hear these terrible things about what happened to her daughter over and over. I mean, her, along with the entire family, has just showed so much strength through this entire process.
Michelle Zepeda, your reporting has been outstanding. Thank you so very much. I'll let you get back there. I know there are family members there. We have other crews there. We'll have the very latest. We're less than an hour away from our 5 o'clock newscast. I want to thank you for joining us throughout this afternoon. We've been live with you starting about 1:08 this afternoon for the sentencing of James Worley, a murderer from over in Fulton County, who now has a date with death. Circle it on your calendars. That date is June 3rd of 2019. I'm Jerry Anderson, WTOL 11 News. Thank you for joining our live coverage. We'll get you back to your regular programming. See you at 5.